So recently a client of mine wanted me to create some night shots, some night footage. They wanted to incorporate some 360 element into the project. And I realized that I wasn't sure which 360 camera actually worked best in these very difficult low light situations. Because it'd been a while since I'd really tested the latest cameras. So I picked out 4 of the top contenders for shooting low light 360 videos and photos, and I went out and tested them, and here are my results. I thought I may as well share them with you. The shots you're seeing here were shot with the Insta360 X3, and this is from a video I made earlier this year, or maybe late last year, about how to get the right settings, and this is actually the video that got me the job. I was pretty sure that there were cameras now that could do a better job than this. Okay, so the cameras I decided to use in this comparison is the Insta360 1-inch 360 edition, the Insta360 X3, the Cam 3, and the Ricoh Theta Z1. Now I chose these cameras because they all have some specs or some credentials that mean they should be able to work at least halfway well in the dark at nighttime in low light scenarios. And they're all under $1,000 or £1,000 or euros, so I tried to keep this to a roughly consumer price range. So let's take a look at these direct comparisons. For every comparison that I did, so I shot in the same location at the same time. I used the same settings, so the same ISO, shutter speed settings. As I predicted, the Theta Z1 performs the worst when it comes to video. This has been the case for the entire time it's been in existence. It's just not very good at shooting video, but the other 3 are markedly better. I actually find that the Cam 3 out of the remaining 3 cameras picks up the most detail. However, it's also quite a bit noisier, that kind of grainy effect, that fuzziness, which we want to really avoid in our low light shots. That's more prevalent in the Cam 3. The Insta360 cameras, as predicted, the 1-inch doing better out of those 2, and they both have less noise than the Cam 3, but they kind of I'm not sure if it's an internal processing trying to get rid of that noise, but it kind of blurs out the details. There's a kind of slight blurriness. And in this second example, once again, we can take out the Z1. It looks pretty terrible. But again, the Cam 3, again, picking up more details, but more noisy. The Insta360 1-inch probably overall looks the best because it doesn't have that much noise, but it just lacks slight, if you zoom in, I think you can see here more clearly there's just slightly less details compared to the Cam 3, but overall it does look better. To be fair, the Insta360 X3 also does a fairly decent job. So we can see here another example. For all of these first set of videos, I set the ISO to 640 with the shutter speed at 1/30th of a second. The videos would be brighter if I set the ISO higher, say to 1000 or even 1500, but then they would be very noisy and grainy. So to keep things fair, I set the same ISO for all the cameras. So for this last video shot, I eliminated the Z1 because it clearly wasn't performing well in these video tests. The Cam 3 and the Insta360 cameras are more closely matched, with the X3 probably the worst performing out of the 3. And the difference between the Cam 3 and the 1-inch edition is, I think, pretty minimal, to be quite honest. Perhaps the 1-inch is better just because it does have much less noise. And I think it does capture also slightly more accurate colors, whereas the Cam has a bit of a weird color balance thing going on. But also bear in mind that the Cam 3 is, I think, under half the price of the 1-inch 360 edition. So in terms of quality to value, the Cam 3 is performing really, really well. So once again, you may be thinking that none of these videos are looking particularly good, but just bear in mind that in these examples, I put them in very difficult, I guess, circumstances. And I've also cropped and zoomed in so that it's accurate, so that we've got the same crop and zoom. So if I wanted to create videos like this, these were shot with the Insta360 X3, and I think they look fairly decent. And the X3, not the best performing out of these tests, so you could definitely get better quality with the other cameras that I've shown you. So remember, you have to set up your camera manually if you want to get any decent low light footage with any camera really. Especially if you're moving, if you want any moving shots, you need to keep the ISO low and the shutter speed higher, at least to 1/100th of a second. That will stop any blurriness or any kind of shakiness. So I did do a quick test with moving video with all of these cameras, and I set every camera up the same. And these are the results, and you can determine for yourself which one you think handles moving video better in low light situations. Again, there's not much light here apart from the traffic. But let's move on to look at some 360 photos shot with these same cameras in the same locations. And here's where things get mixed up a little bit, because now the Theta Z1 I think performs better than the other cameras. Each of these cameras is capable of shooting raw images, which is definitely the preferred format to shoot in if you want to get high quality, well, in any scenario, but particularly in these difficult conditions. If you want to get high quality 360 photos indoors or in low light, you need to shoot in RAW. For every camera, there is a workflow. It doesn't just come out of the camera perfect. You need to take these raw images, go through another program, which is different, but depending on which camera you use. Then you have to use a program like Photoshop or Lightroom to bring out those details to make the image look great, which, to be fair, isn't that difficult, but those are paid programs, Lightroom and Photoshop. So there's a bit of a workflow, but at the end, you get a much better image, and these are the results. And yeah, overall, I think the Theta Z1 shoots the best quality 360 images, even if they are a bit noisier than I'd like. But the dynamic range, the colors and details captured with the Z1 surpass any of the other three. Ricoh have a long history of, creating lenses, sensors, so this really shows in this camera, which is basically considered the closest to a DSLR level 360 camera. The noise can also be reduced in programs like Premiere Pro and Lightroom, but it does require a bit of skill, so I didn't want to bias the scenario here, so I didn't do any noise cancellation with any of these images, but you can get rid of quite a lot of this noise once you learn how to do that in a program. The QCam 3, I think, is a close second with the very high quality 360 images, given its price, once again, was very impressive. You could certainly use the QCam 3 as a virtual tour camera or to shoot in low light situations like this. Once again, these were all very difficult conditions, and the QCam, I think, performed really well. The Insta360 cameras are capturing brighter images. I think it's more, you can see more of the details, but they're just, once again, a bit blurred out. The Insta360 cameras do have a pure shot mode, which means it automatically adds in those details and editing for you, so you don't need to use a paid program like Lightroom and Photoshop, this pure shot mode. But I use this pure shot mode, but I also did some editing myself. But regardless of what mode you use, this is kind of the quality you get with the Insta360 cameras. It's pretty good. It's just not quite as dynamic, and it doesn't look quite as professional as the other two. But on the other hand, the Insta360 cameras capture higher resolution images. So if you were concerned about zooming into an image, retaining details in quite distant parts of your shots, then that would also factor in, because the Insta360 cameras will be able to retain more information and more detail with a high resolution image. So guys, that's it. Those are my examples. Those were my tests of these 4 cameras, which I think are the 4 to choose from. I ended up, for my job, for my thing, ended up taking the QCam and the 1-inch 360 edition because I didn't need photos, so I didn't need the Z1, and I think the X3 just couldn't quite get to the quality I wanted. But yeah, the QCam 3 was kind of my backup, and I used the Insta360 1-inch edition for the videos. But I do have to say, the biggest, I think, surprise here, or the best value, the QCam 3, shooting actually quite decent low light videos and photos. So for under $400 and £400, that is really quite impressive. But yeah, overall, I would give first place to the 1-inch 360 edition for video, and for photography, I still think the Theta Z1 is the one to beat. I've been using the Theta Z1 in low light scenarios for, I guess, yeah, the past 3 or 4 years. I even shot in Iceland in the middle of nowhere and captured the northern lights, captured the stars. So I think that would be difficult with any of these other cameras. So yeah, those are my recommendations for 360 cameras for low light video, the Insta360 1-inch 360 edition, and for low light photography, the Ricoh Theta Z1. So I've got some more tutorials coming up with these cameras. If you have an Insta360 camera, then please check out my video course, which I just launched last month. I am giving away half price for the first 100 subscribers, and there's only about, I think, 20 places left. So if you want to learn how to master your Insta360 camera and get all these amazing shots, then please check it out. But if not, then that's okay too. So I'll see you next time, guys. Bye.